Curly here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Municipality of Monroeville's regular council meeting. Today is Tuesday, October 8th, 2013, approximately 7 p.m. If we'd all kindly rise for the Lord's Prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mayor Cinco.
Here.
Mr. Erb.
Here.
Dr. Griesbach.
Here.
Mrs. Drumheller.
Here.
Mr. Johns.
Here.
Mrs. Allison.
Here.
Mr. Duncan.
Here.
Mr. Ramsey.
Here.
Mrs. McKinney.
Here.
Mr. Dice.
Here.
Mr. Hugus.
Here.
Mrs. Werksman.
Here.
Council, going over the approval of the minutes of the council meeting of August 13, 2013. The Citizens Night meeting is September 5th, 2013. And I assume everybody had a chance?
No.
They have not?
They
Okay.
haven't been distributed.
Okay, very good. Any further, I guess that'll be out for our next meeting,
Yes.
the September 10th, 2013. But any further additions or corrections?
Mayor, just very absolutely minor on September 5th, Citizens Night, just a typo for HIPAA, HIPAA.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, council? Seeing none, motion on the floor.
Move to approve the minutes as they are submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Erb.
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach.
Aye.
Mrs. Drumheller.
Aye.
Mr. Johns.
Aye.
Mrs. Allison.
Aye.
Mr. Duncan.
Aye.
Mr. Ramsey.
Aye.
Moving over to our reports of our tax collections. Any other corrections or additions, council? Seeing none, is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mr. Duncan.
Aye.
Mrs. Allison.
Aye.
Mr. Johns.
Aye.
Mrs. Drumheller.
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach.
Aye.
Mr. Erb.
Aye.
Moving over to our payroll report. Once again, council. Seeing no issue, motion on the floor.
Move to approve the payroll.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Erb.
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach.
Aye.
Mrs. Drumheller.
Aye.
Mr. Johns.
Aye.
Mrs. Allison.
Aye.
Mr. Duncan.
Aye.
Mr. Ramsey.
Aye.
Over our list of bills. Any other issues with our list of bills? We did discuss this at length on Thursday. Seeing none, motion on the floor.
Motion to approve the list of bills.
Second.
Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mr. Duncan.
Aye.
Mrs. Allison.
Aye.
Mr. Johns.
Aye.
Mrs. Drumheller.
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach.
Aye.
Mr. Erb.
Aye.
And moving over our budget transfers. Again, any other questions? Seeing none, motion on the floor.
Move to approve budget transfers.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Erb.
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach.
Aye.
Mrs. Drumheller.
Aye.
Mr. Johns.
Aye.
Mrs. Allison.
Aye.
Mr. Duncan.
Aye.
Mr. Ramsey.
Aye.
Moving over to our vacancies on boards, commissions, and authorities. Any appointments or nominations?
Yes, Mayor.
Please.
I would like to appoint to the Ethics Board from the Second Ward, Gary Griziak.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sorry,
No, just point of order here. Was this a nomination?
no appointment.
This was an appointment?
Yes.
You nominated him
You
last month.
nominated.
Yeah, I did, yeah. No, I had another nomination, actually, but majority carries, yeah.
This was the gentleman who was also, this was his second preference, Mr. Griziak. His first preference was for the Zoning Hearing Board, and being the second, from the Second Ward, I'm the Second Ward representative. Mrs. Drumheller from the Third Ward nominated someone else from the Second Ward, somewhat out of order, but it did carry. But Mr. Griziak will make a fine addition to the Ethics Board or any any of the board or commissions that he would serve on. He is a man of high integrity and a good tax-paying citizen, so
I guess the
I'm glad to
confusion
have him.
came as well because you voted no to nominate him last month, correct?
Well, that was my
That was a
point.
little
I was.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
his preferential appointment, or nomination, rather, was for the zoning hearing board. That's why I voted no for the ethics board.
Yeah, and that, for that reason that you voted no, I was going to make another nomination that might gain a unanimous, yeah, but that's okay.
It's already done.
Okay?
Any other appointments or nominations,
Yes,
council?
Mayor.
Please.
I'd like to appoint Franny Castile to the Human Needs and Resources Advisory Board.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Once again, council, any other appointments or nominations? Seeing none, we'll move over to public comment on agenda items only. Agenda items only. Seeing none, we'll move over to bids and proposals. And Lynette, if you would.
Yes, as we spoke on Thursday, these three items, the telephone system, the fob system, and the UPS system, were presented for a budget transfer under Ordinance 2591. Council had asked that this be brought to the agenda. Actually, all three items are under state contract, so I was just doing it more as an informative item, not really as a voting item. But in your agenda packet is a spreadsheet with the amounts. And as we discussed on Thursday, there's a budget transfer that will take some of the money out of our telephone system and transfer it over to the fob system to make up the balance.
Questions or comments on this item? Again, we did discuss this on Thursday.
Just to confirm, so the money is within the budget that we already have for this year?
This was under the 2008-2010 capital improvements
Okay.
budget that we reallocated under that
Okay,
ordinance.
so we're fine.
Yeah, we are good.
Okay. I'd move to approve.
If this is not a.
There's,
Yeah, it was just more
it's
informative,
just more informative.
because it's all under
Okay,
state
so you're not-
contract, so it's the lowest. It was just
Okay.
more of an informative item.
But thank you, though. That was good. We were trying to get it moving. Lynette, if resolutions, if you would.
Yes, the first resolution, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution authorizing the distribution of general municipal pension system aid pursuant to the Municipal Pension Plan Act 205 of 1984. I wanted to make mention that when the resolution was prepared, we missed a line on Thursday, so Visit Monroeville was added of the $3,884.36. I just wanted to bring that to council's attention, that when it was prepared, it was just missed off the resolution.
Motion on the floor.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Herb?
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach?
Aye.
Mrs. Drumheller?
Aye.
Mr. Johns?
Aye.
Mrs. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
Aye.
Mr. Ramsey?
Aye.
Lynette, if you would.
Second resolution is a resolution approving a facility use agreement between Monroeville Baseball Association and the municipality of Monroeville for the use of ball fields, concession stands, and other related areas. As we talked about on Thursday, this item had appeared on your work session agenda for the last 3 months. I believe Councilman Griesbach would like to take over from here.
Sure. This went before the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board for the past few months. There's been a lot of discussion. We tabled it a few times, so we get a lot more discussion. And as of their meeting last night, they are in favor of approving it as is. They recognize that it's not, it's a challenging situation to keep all parties happy, but they feel at this point it is the best it's going to be for this year, and they're very eager to look at it midway through the year to really see if things need to be tweaked or changed, and are willing to work with baseball and soccer. But at this point, the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board does recommend approval of these resolutions for both soccer and baseball.
Again, there was a motion and a second. Any questions on this item before you, council? Seeing none?
Was a motion and a second?
Oh, there was not a, okay. Seeking a motion, I'm sorry.
So therefore, I would move to approve, I didn't see the resolution number.
I don't have one.
Number 2.
Resolution number 2 for Could we do them both at the same time, Mr. Dice, or one?
Can.
For the baseball and soccer agreements between, their rental use agreement between the municipality of Monroeville and their organizations.
Is there a second on both
Second.
resolutions? Okay. Questions or comments now?
Just a real quick question. In the past, we've tried to at least have them cover the cost of grass, et cetera, from the use. I presume that was taken care of in this agreement?
Well, I mean, the $10,000 is a starting point, because they're actually, there's a few ways of looking at it. The electrical bills for the community park are between $12,000 and $16,000, which baseball and soccer utilize. And with this, they are also allowed to use our concession stands, and they can generate revenue from it. And if the math is done based on facility use agreement, as far as like the rental fees we normally would, the $10,000 is actually cheaper than what they would pay based on our fee schedule. Our fee schedule states a certain amount per field, per day. Also, there's a percentage for concession stand use and seasonal use. So the $10,000 is somewhat of a generous offer, and it's a step in the right direction. So to answer your question, Mr. Erb, in the past, they have paid for certain items,
Yeah, they paid for grass
fertilizer,
last year, fertilizer, and some other things in addition. I mean,
So what one of the big concerns with baseball, and I believe soccer as well, is that, and I'm hoping this can go through the manager and through Mrs. Worksman, is that there is a line item for the community park where this money would go. That's one of the major concerns that they have, is to make sure that the money that they're donating actually will be going into the fields and not necessarily somewhere else in the budget. So that was one of the main things that we want to make happen. The Recreation and Parks Advisory Board want to make happen as well, if we can get that as a separate line item in the community park budget, so we know where that money is. And then we are keeping it similar to what we've done in the past. We're really just trying to get it on paper. In the past, they have spent a fair amount of money, around $10,000, but now we're just trying to clean it up, tighten it up, take care of the auditor's recommendations for this, and move forward. But once again, the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board is very willing to look at it during the year and really spend some time and see if things need to be tweaked once we get it rolling here a little bit.
Okay, no further questions.
Yeah, I only have one comment, and that would be that this does answer to the audit and management letter under the general fund that we had previously had ambiguities noted, and it actually under financial, the arrangement is made clear now.
Any other comments, council? Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
Aye.
Mrs. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Johns?
Aye.
Mrs. Drumheller?
Aye to both.
Dr. Griesbach?
Aye.
Mr. Erb?
Aye.
Mrs. McKinney.
The last resolution is a resolution establishing a scrap metal policy. As we discussed on Thursday, this was another part of our management letter from our auditor that we needed to tighten up. So a policy and resolution has been created for the Public Works Department to follow.
Motion on the floor.
Move to approve the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Erb?
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach?
Aye.
Mrs. Drumheller?
Aye.
Mr. Johns?
Aye.
Mrs. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
Aye.
Mr. Ramsey?
Aye.
Thank you, Lynette. Bruce, if you would.
Yes, the first ordinance is an ordinance amending 1443, the Monroeville zoning ordinance, as amended, setting forth standards for the control and management of honeybees within the municipality.
Motion on the floor.
Move to approve the ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, aren't we in the middle of redoing our entire zoning ordinances currently? I mean, if we're in the process of redoing the whole zoning ordinances, wouldn't this be better served to be dealt with in the zoning ordinances that are going to be forthcoming?
Well, in the planning and discussion of the regulations for honeybee, that was one of the first things that was examined. In fact, that's the reason why I met with our zoning code enforcement officer, and we looked at, what was going on and how it would comply when considering. So it basically, the only thing that the municipality can do to regulate anything is through zoning. And therefore, if you're going to have an apiary, you're going to have a fly barrier and setbacks in accordance with that zoning ordinance. All of these are already going to be in compliance with that. The other thing is that you're going to have what is going on in the apiary. If something does go wrong or is out of compliance, that's a state regulation, and it has been and it continues to be in this ordinance. So everything is in compliance with that, and that was part of the planning process. That's the reason why we had meetings on that.
And, I mean, I guess my second question is, beekeeping is considered animal husbandry. Therefore, again, I go to the fact that any of the reasons that we would be putting zoning around it, any of the rules that we'd be putting around it, would belong in the zoning laws that they are in the process of revising.
Yeah,
I don't know, what is the benefit of putting
I can tell
a
you.
snap-on tool that we're going to use
This is why
temporarily?
This is why I wish you were patient enough to stay Thursday night. But I'll go ahead and just try to explain best I can, and I ask anybody to please join in with me. And that is to say that the part of the process that we're looking at here is already a process that's under our zoning law. And when we have people who have beehives, they have them here already. Are they regulated? No, there's nothing that really is in place to regulate them, to do them the right way, so that if something is out of compliance, you have a rule. And this does put that rule in place. It really offers guidance to do it the right way. We do have people who keep bees. And if we have people in the future who we hope will keep honeybees, they will have to do it the right way. They will have to provide proof of education. They will have to have inspection. It was either once or twice every year. And all of these are going to be in accordance where they belong. State compliance, and if there are any complaints, there is a pathway to having them addressed. And it's all in compliance with zoning, because if you're going to have an apiary, you're going to have it a certain number of feet away from a pool. You're going to have a body of water close by. You're going to have a barrier so that the bees enter the proper way. You can't have it in the front yard. In other words, it's addressing what's now existing and what will be in that zoning ordinance. And the only thing I'm wishing that I could have done is invite you to those meetings to sit down with Mr. Chufo, who's not here tonight. But I assure you that was one of the reasons that we had those meetings.
I have comments as well, actually, Mayor.
Sure.
Kind of a separate issue. I understand where Mr. Erb is coming from, and as far as the whole ordinance itself, I appreciate what Mrs. Drumheller is presenting here, that, yes, this is the only way we're going to be able to really regulate things is through zoning of this, because most of it is handled through the Department of Agriculture. But my concerns that I have is with the zoning portion of it is that the setbacks are 10 feet away from any property, and also to the one that has 7,500 square feet of lot area, which really is not a very large lot. It's probably almost every property in Monroeville. If you'd imagine 75 feet by 100 feet, it's not a very big yard. So that would allow you or allow an individual to have four different hives, and for every additional 2,000, they would have a couple extra. So I have major concerns with the setback of 10 feet, and also, as far as the fencing. I mean, it says barriers may be used, but it doesn't actually make them mandatory. And what is to keep, say, a child from coming over and wrapping the side of it with a wiffle ball bat or playing with it? I know these aren't Africanized honeybees. Supposedly the European ones are very docile. However, everyone's seen beekeepers. They don't go in there with short sleeves. They wear netting. They wear protective gear. So what is to prevent an accident happening as far as that goes with our children in the community? Also, 10 feet away from a property line, there are people that are extremely allergic to bee stings. Actually, we have an employee who almost died, actually, on recycling because of this. And I don't think someone in that situation would appreciate having a beehive 10 feet away from their property whenever they're trying to cut their own grass. So my concerns are with the actual setbacks themselves. If we could change the zoning that way a little bit, have the setback be a little further into somebody's yard, actually mandate fencing around the hive itself, I'd be more comfortable in voting for this ordinance.
I think
Mayor.
if you listen to some of the back and forth over this, certainly Mr. Rapaski, who is not here tonight, who was here Thursday night, and bees that are blamed for stinging, I think Councilman Duncan brought this up because, that was figured to be a yellow jacket hornet issue when there's a stinging insect. And it, in fact, is not honeybees.
Now, European honeybees absolutely sting. Maybe
Well,
not to the degree that
yeah.
yellow jackets do, but
And
they
this
absolutely
is one of the
sting.
reasons that you would have to have the kind of barrier that you would have, the certain number of feet that you would from the hive, which is only entered at one point. To have that barrier put at 4 feet, and to have the trajectory of how the bees enter and exit as they go back and forth to their nectar and back and forth to their apiary is one of the reasons that you'd have the distance away. The setback has less to do with that. The setback has more to do with what's in line with our zoning ordinance already. And I must emphasize that is something that is already part of our zoning ordinance.
For sheds and decks, not
Yeah,
beehives.
but you understand, or if you read this, you understand that the barrier that they must clear in order to go in and out already puts them, unless of course you're going to have them in a very high structure on a roof, puts them out of the way of anybody who would be a neighbor regardless of the setback because of the way the bees come in and go out of their hive. Gee, I
Mrs.
should have
Drummiller.
invited both of you to some of these meetings there. But we
No, I'm well
certainly-
aware. Certainly if a
It's
child is going to climb on an apiary, potential is for them to get stung. And we have
I
swimming.
guess if they climbed on one, yeah, they would.
Right, so we
Climbed on one.
mandate fences around pools, even though it's, in your yard and somebody technically is trespassing on your property.
Yeah.
But we do that, so
So
to
what is your suggested setback?
setback maybe 20 feet,
And what would be the advantage of another 10 feet?
more distance
For what? For what, though?
away from somebody's property line. 10 feet's not very far.
Is that the trajectory of the bees going in and out of the apiary? I'm not sure that you're understanding that.
I do understand. I've read the ordinance. I do understand it.
Right. Then perhaps we would do better to table this until we have
absolutely.
some
I'd be in favor of that.
more conversation that we all could engage with Mr. Rapaski coming back, because...
Can I call for the question and just interrupt? Can I call for the question?
Call for a question means we're going to vote. Sharon, if you would, roll call, please.
Mr. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
No.
Mrs. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Johns?
No.
Mrs. Drumheller?
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach?
No.
Mr. Erb?
No.
The next ordinance is the ordinance to provide for an amendment to the 2013 general fund budget.
Motion on the floor.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Questions or comments?
This is for the outside legal fees, is that correct?
That is correct, yes. The outside legal fees and liability and property insurance.
Once again, council, questions? Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Erb?
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach?
No.
Mrs. Drumheller?
Aye.
Mr. Johns?
No.
Mrs. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
No.
Mr. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mr. Dice.
The third ordinance is an ordinance to provide for the amendment of the 2008-2010 capital improvement budget.
Motion on the floor.
Move to approve?
Is there a
Second.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
No.
Mrs. Allison?
No.
Mr. Johns?
No.
Mrs. Drumheller?
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach?
Aye.
Mr. Erb?
Aye.
Mr. Dice.
Okay, the next ordinance is an ordinance amending the code of the municipality of Monroeville, ordinance number 2361, 2416, 2520,
Are you
2530.
skipping?
That's okay. Well, you missed one, but we'll go back on.
Which one did I miss?
Number 4.
Okay, let's do number 4. Ordinance number, the fourth one on the agenda. I checked it off, I'm sorry. Forgive me.
It's okay.
An ordinance to provide for an amendment of the 2013, or 2011-2013 capital improvement budget.
Motion on the floor.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Question.
Ordinance fails for a second.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You going to second?
If you make a second, it just opens discussion, doesn't mean you
Yeah,
have to
until
vote
there's
that
a
way.
second,
So I'll
there's no
second it,
discussion.
so there's
Okay,
discussion.
now-
Okay.
Just for the purpose of
Discussion, there you go.
You're done, go ahead.
Good.
Actually, your mess up screwed me up. I'm sorry. We're on ordinance 4.
Yes.
Which is the Route 22 Value City signal.
Okay. I'm on board now.
This is for the intersection, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Everybody know where we're at, right?
I
Number
think so.
4.
Number 4.
Number 4.
Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Erb?
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach?
Aye.
Mrs. Drumheller?
Aye.
Mr. Johns?
Aye.
Mrs. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
Aye.
Mr. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mr. Dice.
Yeah, I'm going to go in order now.
Thank you,
Very
Mr.
good.
Number 5, an ordinance amending the code of the municipality of Monroeville, ordinance number 2361, 2416, 2520, 2533, 2574, by amending and restating the rules and regulations for the civil service.
Motion on the floor,
Move to
council.
approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
No.
Mrs. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Johns?
No.
Mrs. Drumheller?
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach?
No.
Mr. Erb?
Aye.
Mr. Dice.
Okay, the next ordinance is an ordinance authorizing the proper officials of Monroeville to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the Police Department of the Wage and Policy Committee of the municipality, providing corrective language to clarify long-term disability benefits and extend the contract.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments?
I have a comment. I just don't understand how we could extend a contract with the new council coming in. I feel that we'd be leaving them out of, any input. You're talking a 3-year extension on a contract with no negotiations? I've never heard of it.
Doesn't that have to go to the bargaining unit first, I think, or don't they have to approve that? I'm a little bit,
They did approve.
they did approve it.
Did they vote?
They did vote?
Approve it. I talked to the representatives, and they...
Did they take a vote?
Yes, they
Well,
did.
she said they voted. I didn't know that.
And for clarification, too, this contract has not expired. It's not like, it's not we're at the end of it and we're extending it. We're actually in the middle of it. It is actually scheduled to expire in
2014.
December of 14.
December of 2014. So I don't understand the rush with extending it now in the middle of its contract. I know that there is discussion about it. Lynette, it was a pay freeze,
Yes, it's 0% across the next 3 years, across the board.
but which is not in there is cost of living increases and other increases in benefits in that contract. And I think certainly in our financial state, as we get into our budget time, these are the kind of things we have to really look into is our union contracts. One of the things that I'm in favor of is a 2-tiered system for the police department, and let me explain that. What that means is that current employees and current officers maintain what they were promised and maintain their level of salary and everything, and you're not pulling the rug out from anybody. These guys and ladies have been hired under this contract, and they accepted this contract, and we, not us, but the previous councils have given them this contract. What a 2-tiered system does is now changes the parameters for new hires. You bring them in at a different rate. So therefore, you are not messing with anyone that's currently involved. People that are coming in are still getting a wonderful place to work and a good community and getting a good job. And we're certainly not going to lowball them as far as benefits and salaries. But it's a way to long-term really help some of our financial issues here in Monroeville. the two-tiered system wasn't done, the previous contract, and I think a long-term approach would be to try to negotiate that into this next contract, certainly at a time whenever we've been discussing it quite a bit for the past several months, that there are a lot of officers that are retiring soon. There was a large hiring wave back in the 80s that a lot of those gentlemen are coming to retire soon, so it'd be a perfect time to try to manage that. So I really don't understand why we would extend this contract for 3 more years, even whenever it's not even at an end point of this contract. We're in the middle of the contract, so I don't understand the sense in it.
Well, you know what, real quick, I feel strongly that there's a reason that some of us need to extend this contract, and I also feel strongly that it's just a matter of time we'll find out why.
My comment has to do with, actually, it was at 2011 when this was brought up because of the step system that was in place and the realization that it only took 4 steps. We, for reasons of wanting to keep our costs down and fixed, added 2 extra steps to that system. So instead of a 4-step system, in order to reach the desired salary, there would be 6. And the cost of living increase, I was trying to find out I think it's based on the 1967 formula that is basically looking at a percentage of that shifts over time and adds pennies on the dollar. So even looking at a cost of living increase, I would wager to say that the last time there was any adjustment to that, it might have been 1 or 2 cents on the dollar that they were making. And for that reason, that was thought to be a much better deal than what we had previously had, and that's why we worked as hard as we did to make it that way. To add the steps, to keep the cost of living to a reasonable formula, and to prepare for people who were leaving so that when you hired your new hires in, you could keep them at that lower salary. You had 6 steps in order to get there. It wasn't that this was one put together that there was no thought.
Oh, of course there was
There's a
thought
great
put
deal of
into it,
thought to it,
absolutely.
May I
we should
ask a question,
improve upon
possibly to the manager? When a new officer is hired, when does he come to the full rate?
It takes approximately 18 months to 2 years, depending on what the probationary,
To come to the max rate?
correct.
So I believe what
It's
Mr.
several
Griesbach may
steps.
be suggesting is a 2-tier permanent system where they would come to a certain rate. It may not be at the rate where the officers currently are. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I mean, that could all be done through negotiation. And extend a 3-year contract
Without negotiation.
without negotiations, just, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, we do.
Another way you could look at that
And
is,
especially with a new council, a majority of council coming in to have no input.
or are we not deciding it as a council of 7 up here right now?
Well, I think that you have to put some thought into 3 months from now, the council that's coming in that has to accept the burden and.
Yeah, and that's a zero net gain, and that's one of the reasons that you
It
should look at
very,
fixing
very
your
well
costs.
may be, but I don't see any harm in negotiations,
Well,
is all I'm saying.
it would be helpful
And
to
the
have
same
zero
thing-
net gain.
Regardless of who's sitting up here, it's still, it gets back to the point I was trying to make, regardless if it's this council or the next council or 3 councils from now. We always want to try to improve our contracts. And I mean, if we have, we certainly are in financial, we're having financial difficulties as a municipality, and this is one way to try to remedy some of that. So I think it'd be in the best interest of this council or the next council or any council to try to negotiate a contract that is more favorable for the municipality.
We don't have anybody that's near retire, the retirement ages will all come after the extension is over. The people that are nearing retirement none of them are in the next 3 years, so you won't be hiring additional people in the next 3 years based on people leaving or anything. It's
Well, I
not going
was
to have
told-
any impact.
No, I disagree. I was told next year there's a lot of eligible
Yeah, we've seen lists.
employees to retire. And that's next year, or at the end of this year, months from now.
And we're currently hiring people.
And we're currently hiring.
And we currently pay, I mean, just to give people an idea, Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, we are roughly approximately our average salary is roughly $30,000 above the average across the board with the state of Pennsylvania. And that is, you know, it was wonderful that we had the opportunity to do that, and we had the funds to do that, and the community to do that, and we have a great police force because of that. But, you know, times change, and once again, that's where a two-tiered system really comes into play to make long-term changes without affecting your current staff.
Was that comparison of the 30,000 made to municipalities with similar census?
Yeah, across the board.
No, well, of course, that would mean all, not those with similar census as we have,
Actually, similar census is probably even more.
probably. Sure, that's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on this item before you, council? Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mr. Duncan?
No.
Mrs. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Johns?
No.
Mrs. Drumheller?
Aye.
Dr. Griesbach?
Nope.
Mr. Erb?
Aye.
Mr. Dice.
The last ordinance is an ordinance establishing a cell phone policy and monthly stipend for municipal employees.
Motion on the floor.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Questions or comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
I believe our payments currently for all the phones are roughly around $1,000 a month, is that correct?
Last month's bill was $1,028.76. yes.
Roughly $1,000. And we feel that we're going to save a couple $100 a month by doing this?
Between $250 and $300 a month, yes.
And how are you going to accomplish that? By taking some phones off of
There are gonna be
individuals
some
that have them now?
phones that will be eliminated, yes, and then there are stipends that will be added to key department heads that don't have stipends
But
currently.
without going to this stipend issue, couldn't we eliminate some phones? I mean, it's at your will to eliminate phones, and which would reduce the bill, correct?
Correct, and we have done that so far. We have eliminated a few. This
So
would
through
be,
paperwork and everything, you really think that we're going to have that much of a savings by going with this?
well, I would recommend it. I mean, the school district has gone to a stipend program. Every one of the department heads that came in through budgetary meetings are actually in favor of it. They don't want to carry two phones. They'd rather have the stipend. It actually saves money for the municipality. So, I mean, I think it's a win-win across the board. We're basically getting out of the cell phone business. Most department heads and other individuals do not have texting capabilities on their phone. They do not have access to their emails on the current phone system that we have through the municipality, because we try to keep the cost as low as possible. So by giving a stipend, they would be able to get that service and put that money towards their own phone.
Again, it's so nice to get an explanation. I'd hate to get the explanation here at a council meeting. I'd have loved to have had that explanation prior to this, but, okay, thank you.
In that same vein, I mean, I'm two things. I mean, I don't know if we can examine who currently has phones, if there's ways to trim back on that. But then if we are moving forward on this one, on the stipend, I mentioned on Thursday that, you know, there are some individuals that I don't see listed on here, and I think anyone who, if we're going to ask them to be traveling, to be away from the office, I know there's a lot of people in here, or a lot of positions in here that makes perfect sense. Some of the public works foremen, they're always running around. Animal control, he's always around. Zoning officers, building officials, engineering, code enforcers. You know, these are positions that are always potentially out of the office, and they are on call, so to speak. Now, would that be for all the department heads?
Yes. Yes, all the department heads are listed to get those.
So, I mean, I mentioned a few positions on Thursday, but we have people in the rec department who have the pool they have to deal with, the different parks, the different day programs that they are traveling. We're asking them to travel around for. I mean, I would ask that we incorporate them. And I know from down at TV 15, I know that Mr. Habala is a department head, but Mr. Balsick, he's always on call and traveling. And if we're going to, you know, ask people to be outside the office and with the sense that we can get a hold of them at any time, those are the people that should be on this list. As far as the department heads,
Well, I mean, in regards to Parks and Recreation, when the Parks and Rec people leave the office, they take a municipal car with them that can have a radio equipped in there. The same thing with Mr. Balsick. A radio can be put at that no cost to the municipality.
Okay, well,
So these are all things that I'll take into consideration, but right now, my original recommendation is where I'd like to start from.
okay, I mean, the radios, that's actually a good point I never thought of. But if we look at that, all the public works foremen would have radios, the animal control officer would have a radio.
Right, but most of those people also, are out of their vehicles or they're at a job site and aren't, right in the vehicle at all times.
Whoever you're going to require to be kind of like on call 24 hours, whatever business you're in, you should, if you're going to require them to be on call for, if it's a snowstorm or if they need drainage fixed, like like chief of police, superintendent of public works, anyone that comes out to fix a light that goes down, and you're going to need them, like they're at home, you can't rely around, they should be given the stipend or the phone. And that should just, not for someone just to be able to do their job. So
Right, no,
whoever-
no, I agree with that. The radio was just a new thing.
Every
Actually,
Yeah,
public
that could be-
works
they could be
employee
in
is
the
on
car.
24-hour call.
Right, they can, how do they get a hold of them? They don't all have
They
cell phones,
contact
do
the
they?
foreman, now, and the foreman calls
Yeah,
the
that's
We
individual.
tell
Just
the
like they
staff
would
that
do
they
for
get
anyone else,
contacted and
right.
called out, yes.
Now, I understand most of the department heads, I mean, because we have, Mr. Hugus, he's, with engineering, he's out and about. We have library and senior center, they control those facilities, and they're on call for different things. If there was a recreation department director, I mean, that would be one, but I think the employees in that department should follow suit with that, TV 15 and so on and so forth. I'm not quite sure, and this is no offense to Mrs. Worksman, but, as far as the finance director, why, she's not in a position where, or the position itself, finance director, whether it's Mrs. Worksman or the next one or whoever it is, they're not leaving the office, so I'm not really sure how.
Well, and currently, we have people on the list, like Mr. Sedlak, who has the cell phone and the texting, and he doesn't leave the office either, so.
Right, so along with.
Those are
what
all
Ms.
things that we
Exactly,
can
well, with what
really
Mr.
take
Duncan
into
was saying,
consideration.
perhaps maybe those are the ones we look at currently, and maybe we take Mr. Sedlak's away from him now and bring that $1,000 down. I just don't really know about the savings with all of this, that I think maybe we could go through that list, that current list, take a few people off, that maybe there are some examples that we could easily do that, and get this down to a
Well, you got to
concrete
keep
number.
in mind, there are
The
people
current
that-
list may need tweaked, that's
You have to
understandable.
keep in mind that there are people that have cell phones, like Mr. Hugus and Mrs. Worksman, that aren't even getting a stipend or a cell phone. So you're going to have to increase that. Mrs. Griesok at our senior center does not get a cell phone stipend or a cell phone currently.
Right.
So with the people that you're taking off, you're also adding people to put on the list. So keep that in mind, where you're taking, you're also giving back to people who really are on call 24 hours, do need a phone around the clock.
That's why I'd like to see a really specific side-by-side breakdown of both avenues to go.
I think with the paperwork and the added,
It's added actually right into your paycheck, so there's really no paperwork.
well, wouldn't each individual have to turn in,
Correct, it'll be turned into the finance office as backup paperwork.
and the finance office would have to categorize that?
Right.
And
Manpower involved with that.
So,
Well, there's manpower involved with just handling the Verizon and the person who does that as well.
if I may make a suggestion, council, would you like to maybe consider tabling this item and then maybe get into a little more discussion? Not here on live TV with, again, if you have questions or you want to review that list, I think that would be appropriate to table this, and we can certainly pass it next month. But that certainly gives you another 30 days.
I'd move the table.
I'll second.
Roll call, Sharon, please.
Mr. Erb?
No.
Dr. Griesok?
Aye.
Mrs. Drumheller?
No.
Mr. Johns?
Aye.
Mrs. Allison?
No,
Mr. Duncan?
Aye.
Mr. Ramsey?
Abstain.
Abstain?
Abstain. You guys are chasing.
Then I get to vote,
Chasing notes.
and aye.
he has to indicate a reason, doesn't he, when he
No.
abstains? No?
Only unless there's a conflict.
Is there a conflict?
Yeah. Always had a.
Well, the ordinance
never
is
had a-
tabled.
Anybody pay for it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dice. And we'll move over to public comments. This is your time to address council. I would ask that you would keep your comments addressed to me, and please try to be reasonable. Please sign in, state your name, and that you live in Monroeville, not your address.
Okay, my name's Betsy Desmond, and I live in Monroeville. I just have a question on this number 6 that you voted on.
Yes, ma'am.
No disrespect to Diane Allison, but I remember when there was a state restaurant came in here with the state license and all of that, because Mr. Erb worked for the state, he had to leave and wasn't allowed to, remember when you had to leave and weren't allowed to
Those are
vote on
decisions that
that?
I've made based on a couple of things. Number one,
Okay,
there are strict confidentiality rules dealing with people that pay their taxes. And since restaurants pay taxes,
right,
there are times that they get into issues with the
yes,
Department of Revenue.
right.
And since I have a tradition of voting for, when I did not work for the Department of Revenue, I had a tradition of voting for the liquor licenses.
Right.
It would raise questions and bring issue to that taxpayer if there were a taxpayer that I knew that I could not vote on because of the issues that they had. So it would put me in a particular position. I wrote the ethics board. Ethics board said that I'd have to talk to the solicitor. The solicitor and I talked, and simply to protect the taxpayer
Okay.
that would be involved. So the restaurant owner, a restaurant owner that might not pay the Commonwealth the appropriate
Right.
sales and employer withholding taxes that they're supposed to protect their interests, I have chosen to
Step
recuse
aside.
myself from all of those proceedings. And that was, again, to protect the taxpayer.
Okay,
Betsy, hang on. Mr. Dice, if you would.
Okay, let me say to you in a general sense that this has already been established by some case law. In Mr. Erb's case, I don't believe there's a conflict of interest in him voting on the liquor license transfer. I think he just exercised political judgment in his mind not to vote because he happens to pass on certain things that liquor code, or not liquor code violations, but liquor licenses. In the case of Mrs. Allison voting for it, she has not, when the contract is voted upon, there's a vote across the board for all of the pay grades, patrolman, for,
I understand that.
the various ranks. Her husband's a police officer, but he's not singled out in that vote.
I understand that.
Okay, she's voting on the entire thing.
I understand
There's
that.
cases that say that she can do that. She could not vote, so let's say, give him a pay raise individually. She couldn't vote to promote him, because
I
that would be a
understand that.
conflict. But when she
Betsy,
votes,
it's in the state law, and I'll just read if you don't mind.
go ahead.
There's no conflict of interest. The term does not include an action that has de minimis impact, which is a small amount.
I know.
Or which affects to the same degree.
I understand
Everyone in
that
the
law,
class.
because I was
So
told
it's the
that
same
law.
reason Dr. Griesbach can vote on
I
the
just think
administration.
it's an ethical thing.
Well, I mean, every year, Dr. Griesbach votes on the salaries of the administration, which includes his wife. What's the difference?
I did not know that.
Mr. Ramsey, Public Works contract. Prior, Mrs. McDevitt, administration when her son
Okay, well, I
worked.
didn't know
It's
that.
no
I was
difference.
just thinking ethical.
Just as
because
long
there was
as,
a problem
just as
with
long
you
as voting
guys.
for a whole group doesn't, it's a whole group. No, he's not affected any different than the whole group.
Because like you all didn't agree on this. That's why, it wasn't 7 across. There was a 3-4.
That
So I
wouldn't
just-
that would not be the first time a lot of us didn't agree with each other.
Well, no, it's always 3-4, but I just thought, an ethics thing. So I just asked.
Okay.
And again, if I may just add, and I don't think that we have any liquor licenses coming before us in the next 2 months, but as Mr. Dice said, one of the things that a liquor license holder has to do is they have to get a clearance from the Department of Revenue and from Labor and Industry before they can renew their liquor license or before there's a transfer of liquor licenses. And they have to get a clearance stating that they are in compliance with the tax laws of the Commonwealth. And so, in my position, if I have to reject that for a particular bar owner in my day job, then when I'm here, I'm in a particularly weird situation because then I would get up and walk out on that person, or I would abstain on that particular bar holder or that particular owner, and it would present a situation where I've now violated confidentiality of that person. or of that business. And I just didn't want to risk that.
Okay, anybody else would like to address council? Certainly your time. Sir, please sign in, and certainly state your name for the record and that you live in Monroeville. We don't need your home address.
My name is Robert Serafini. I do live in Monroeville. Last Thursday night, we had a somewhat of a heated discussion about the advertisement of the item number, ordinance 5 and 6 by Mr. Wilson. I believe Mr. Geis stated that it had to be advertised and it had to be voted on by the council. I believe that was, am I correct in that? Before they could proceed?
So far, you're right.
Okay. Now, since we had the heated discussion and everything, it was very apparent that the people here did not know what was going on prior to bringing it up for a vote. So what I'm asking you is, if it was not done correctly at the beginning, is the vote taken tonight still in effect without,
Yes.
even though it was not done
Wouldn't
properly?
matter. It was advertised.
Yeah, but I
That's
mean-
the requirement of the state.
What I mean is, it was not
doesn't
done
nullify the
correctly.
vote.
It does not nullify it because it was not done correctly.
No.
Okay, that was
In
all
fact,
I...
I've had developers advertise ordinances, and then when council came to act on them, they did. But generally speaking, I indicated to you that the policy that in other communities where I'm at, there is discussion about that, and then council authorizes it.
Because, like I said, I was somewhat confused as to how it can start out bad and end up even worse.
Once
Just to
again-
just to clarify, Mr. Dice, it's the policy in other communities, but for the 4 years that I've been on council, not once have we sat and taken a vote as to whether we should advertise an ordinance. It has always been, since Marshall was here, the two other managers that were here, and with Ms. McKinney, it has always been an administrative function. And it has never been something, so it's not a change in policy, it's not a bypassing of what we do. It's simply the way Monroeville has operated for years.
Further continue, if you'd have stayed for the meeting, you might have heard all the rest of the discussion. But in my opinion, if it's set up that it's supposed to be that way, why shouldn't it be done that way?
Again, it's not a policy in
I'm
Monroeville.
referring to Mr. Dice. I
Well,
wasn't
don't-
referring to you, sir.
I don't set the policy. I just, somebody asked me a legal opinion about something, that's what I offer my opinion.
Mr. Dice, do you have a copy of that policy?
I don't have a copy of a
Okay.
policy now.
So are you suggesting that it is a policy in Monroeville, Mr.
No.
Dice?
No, I'm not suggesting it.
No, he meant other communities.
Other communities have that policy. It is not a policy in
Not
Monroeville.
exactly. There's no policy in Monroeville. It could be a procedure that is accepted, but it's not a policy in Monroeville, nor, in 4 years under Mr. Bond, I never voted to advertise an ordinance, never, under Mr. Bond or anybody. I just asked Mr. Johns, have you ever? And his answer was no. This is just brought up, and we've never voted to advertise ordinances.
Well, maybe
They
that's,
have to be-
Possibly it should be.
Well, you could-
Because
it could be
it
enacted
comes
as a
a week,
procedure.
a week prior to a council meeting, we get these ordinances and resolutions, and you,
My question is, when do you?
I'm at a question.
When do you vote? When do you vote on it? Because you can't do it by email.
The
you
prior
can't-
month.
Okay, so what if things come up? Because as is done every month, Mrs. McKinney asks
Maybe that
for
would
all
cut some of the
ordinances.
politics out of this.
Well, okay, what if extra ones come in? Like, how do you, you can't, you have to do it at a public meeting, you have to have all your votes in public, you can't do straw votes. So if everyone has to decide what ordinance they're going to get on a month before, things might come in late, and you're going to be a month off, and that might affect how things are paid. I mean, if that's what you
yeah,
want
but
to
there
get
can
into,
always
that's a
be
choice you can
exceptions to
make.
the rule. I mean, if it's something that it's an emergency needs to be dealt with, I can't imagine that, correct me if I'm not wrong, Mr. Dice, they can authorize it and then just discuss it at the next meeting, can they not? And say they had to do that because of whatever emergency it was.
You can set whatever rule or reasonable
You can set whatever
regulation you want.
policy.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's just
I mean, that's-
currently, it's not a policy.
It's kind of like a
nothing-
dead horse. I
It's
mean,
it's not a policy that's currently in effect that was broken. If you'd prefer, if you'd like to make it the policy, so be it. But it's not currently there to be broken. And furthermore, we get our agenda the Thursday before, or the Friday before, a draft agenda, so we kind of know what's going to be on there. There's things that can be added, but there are no ordinances that can be added, resolutions. So we have almost, what, a week?
2 weeks.
2 weeks to know what we're voting on. It's not a surprise to us on Thursday.
Mr. Dice, you get a copy of all the ordinances and resolutions prior to a meeting, correct?
I get to see generally all of the ordinances and resolutions at one time or another before the meeting.
I mean, it was just very apparent last Thursday that amongst you, there wasn't anybody here who knew what was being voted on. I mean, it seemed like everybody was flying, in the dark as to what was going on. So why can't there be some kind of a deadline set as to when an ordinance has to be in, and then be able to discuss it prior to coming to the meeting, and then voting on it as it should be voted on, not asking questions all over the place?
Well, you know what, Bob, maybe that's something that, obviously, this current council may not want to address that, or the majority, but certainly the new council coming in January, which, as Mr. Duncan stated, there are 4, which is the majority. Maybe they'll, with the 3 current that will be remaining, may want to do that.
I just thought it would cut on a lot of the bickering that we have on everything here as to not having a unified question and answer questions.
Well, again, certainly, thank you for your comment. Sir, I know you wanted to come up. We'll get to
Lou Smith, Monroeville. I only have one question for Mr. Dice. All these resolutions and ordinances that was up here, how many did you approve and did you write, or your constituents?
I believe we wrote the Baseball Association ordinance, or resolution, the Soccer Association ordinance. We wrote the resolution that set forth the scrap policy, but we did not participate in the scrap policy process. I believe we did not do the first ordinance dealing with beekeeping.
I believe that you had a review of the draft.
You reviewed it.
Yes, you did.
Chelsea
Yeah,
reviewed that.
that's
She
right.
did.
We reviewed it.
But you didn't write it.
No?
That was Mark.
Yes.
I think Mark did most of it.
Zoning officer did it.
I think that number 2, 3, both of them dealing with capital, the one dealing with general fund is a very simple ordinance, and I think that was done in-house here, as well as the capital improvement, as well as the number 4. Those were done in-house and not with us. Restating the rules and regulations, I saw that. I don't think we drafted it. I think the attorney for the
That is
civil
correct.
service drafted it, but we saw it.
Attorney Warner drafted
Yeah.
that, and Chelsea
Sean Warner,
reviewed it,
yeah.
yes.
As I said, we looked at it. Number 6, again, I don't think we drafted it, but again, it's only one page that just says you adopt the police contract.
No, actually.
One page, it's huge.
No, it's 30
Well,
pages.
yeah, but
It
that's
was-
just the police contract.
It was incorporated.
Yeah,
Mr. Zunick from your office, we incorporated that into the whole entire ordinance.
okay, and he did the disability part.
That is correct.
We did not participate in the extension of the contract.
He knew about it.
I knew about it, yeah, there's no question he knew. And
He may have known, but you did not participate in it. Is that correct?
I didn't participate in any labor negotiations, nor did I participate in the extension part of it. I did participate, and we did do the term disability because of the Bodner case and the Lawford case. The ordinance dealing with cell phones, I think the policy, Lynette certainly consulted with me. I gave her the school district policy on cell phones and their stipend policy. From that, I believe she developed it. Our office may have reviewed it before she put it together, though.
Chelsea reviewed it, and Chelsea wrote the ordinance.
that answer your questions, Lou? You did sign in.
Shouldn't these resolutions and the ordinances be prepared by our attorney that we pay a substantial amount of money every year to do these things?
They were.
And if he's not, where is she getting it done? That's what I want to know. Where's the advice coming from if it's not from him?
Well, I think Mr. Dice certainly answered your question.
And I believe that Ms. McKinney said that she consulted his office.
You'll have your opportunity if anyone wants to come up and talk.
I think there's a lot of information coming from other attorneys or an attorney or other attorneys that's circumventing our solicitor here. That's what I think.
Thank you, sir.
And it might even be the people that we're still paying, and I don't know why we're still paying these people down in Pittsburgh. The investigation should be long over. And from what I understand, there's still discussions going on with Mrs. McKinney with all these lawyers down there that's still adding to our bill every month, just about on a daily basis, and getting a lot of advice that is not even needed by her.
Is that public information?
Yeah, these, we actually got the bills and
She's
it's
getting
public
information from other
information.
attorneys?
Well, it says right on the bill. You know, I mean, if you want to get into that, the Laudermill hearing, we actually contacted Dickie McCamey for the Laudermill
No,
hearing.
no.
Well, there
Let
is,
me-
right here, a
let me-
telephone call to
You
Lynette
need to look at
McKinney.
the entry above that. Mr. Dice's office contacted Mr. Bresnahan about the Laudermill hearing.
Possibly, but it says telephone call
No,
to Lynette
Mrs.
McKinney.
McKinney did not contact Dickie
just
McCabe about the
reading-
Laudermill hearing.
I'm just reading what it states
Mr.
here.
Dice's office contacted them.
Says telephone call to Lynette McKinney regarding Laudermill hearing.
Right, because Mr. Dice's office contacted Mr. Bresnahan's office about the Laudermill hearings.
That's
Did
correct.
not have
I did
anything
do
to
that.
do with
So then
Mrs.
they in
McKinney.
turn contacted
They
Lynette.
in turn contacted me.
Okay, well, I'm just reading off of the,
Okay, well, I'm just
List
clarifying
here.
it. I want you to be clear, as if you read the entry above that, you will understand what occurred there and why that entry is made.
Why would
regards to HHS discussion with Lynette McKinney regarding internal disciplinary action as a result of the internal investigation.
Right, because
I mean, that doesn't
attorney
tell me
from
anything
Mr.
about
Dice's
ICE.
office contacted Mr. Bresnahan's office.
That happened.
That is
What did he
correct,
state?
Mr. Dice?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Telephone call was with Bruce Dice's office.
Yeah, and then,
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to be smart, I'm just, reading what I see.
And I'm explaining to you what the process was and why it occurred and why it appears on the bill.
Why wouldn't the process be that,
She's getting information from someone else, and these things are very easily mixed up.
why wouldn't the process be that if our solicitor contacts outside legal counsel, that they wouldn't be able to hash things out since Mr. Dice represents the municipality? Why couldn't, I don't understand why Mr. Bresnahan couldn't just handle everything through Mr. Dice's office, then Mr. Dice could report back to
I don't
the
know.
manager.
You need to ask that to Mr. Dice and Mr. Bresnahan.
There you
I'd like
go,
to know
Nick.
why we're
That's who you
paying
need to
for it.
ask.
Yeah, I mean,
You worry about
I
your
did
bill?
not authorize the charge. I did not authorize Mr. Dice's office to contact Dickie McCabe. They did that on their own. So if there's any question on counsel, that needs to be directed to Mr. Dice.
Well, let me just ask this, if I may, counsel. Now, I heard, and Lynette, please don't take this as an attack on you, it's not. But I heard that you do talk to the Dickie McCamey office fairly regularly. Is that true?
You want to check my phone records? You most certainly
Well,
can. I do
okay,
not
I
talk to
guess-
them. The last contact I had with them, I do it via email, and I shared that
But
with
do
counsel.
but don't they charge for email as well?
Right, but Mr. Griesok, Councilman Griesok asked for an update on occasion, so I have been sending an occasional every
How often?
2-week,
Okay.
maybe every 2 to 3 weeks.
No, I
Have
actually
we
said
heard
anytime
anything?
you are in contact with them to let us know.
Well, and the residents of our community have come forward and asked that, had we heard anything? So I figured prior to the council meeting, I would send an email saying, has there been any update? And there has not been.
And I respect that, but I mean, I asked anytime there's contact, whether it be through email or any kind of phone call, that we would be updated. And actually, we haven't been. I usually find out when I read through the bill, some of the things that Mr. Duncan was reading off, that's where I see that, there was an email to Dickie McCamey or there was a phone call. So really, I haven't been in the loop as far as hearing about things whenever you do speak with them.
Do you not get email?
I
Because
do.
we certainly do get emails whenever she does, and she says, as requested,
That was the last bill, Mr. Erb. Those emails do not coincide with what we see on the bill as far as the dates that they speak, whether it's through correspondence, through email or phone calls. We did get emailed the last invoice from Dickie McCamey, and I agree with that.
We've also been emailed when she contacts them regarding whether or not there's any feedback from the federal government.
I would like for you to forward those emails to me, and we will match them up with what the invoices say when.
Well, you certainly have email as well as I do. I mean, we get it in our municipal email. Maybe you don't have access on your phone, maybe you don't have access on your computer, I don't know.
I do have access.
But we do get them, if you want to run through them and disprove it, then you can disprove it and show me. I'm not going to go looking for them. I'm telling you that what I've seen is that we do get communicated to as requested.
And I will disagree with you, and I understand there are times we've been notified, primarily with invoices, but not every time, as I requested, in executive session, publicly, numerous times, at any time, that we are in contact with Dickie McCamey, whether it's via a phone call or an email, that we are just made aware of it. We do not get made aware of it every time. So
You and I certainly do disagree on this issue.
Well, the last
happy with that.
contact that I received via email was from Lynette stating that there were nothing further in response to the HIPAA violation.
And I have not spoke with Dickie McCain since that.
And that was last month, or weeks
No
ago.
emails, no.
That was the last thing I've received.
So we
So
should.
I don't know where all these other
Now,
emails
Dickie
are going.
McCain
but-
could have contacted HHS, and that transaction will appear on their bill.
No, I'm not stating the bill. I recall a email that I received from you. I'm sorry, I don't have it printed out here. Usually
But what
I
I'm
do.
saying is every entry on their bill is not a contact directly with me. I mean, it could be a contact with HHS.
That's true.
I mean, if you have the
Well-
bill in front of you, look at the very beginning of the
Anything
bill and
that
read
you'd
the first
received
statement.
from Dickie McCaney should be forwarded to us, correct?
Any email?
Well, any pertinent information.
Anything that I get, what I would surely.
Okay, I haven't
forward to
received
council.
any, other than that response from you a few weeks ago in regards to there was nothing nothing came back as of.
Now, as far as the Loudermill hearings, those are personnel matters.
Why would Dickie McCaney even be involved in a personnel
That is
matter?
not my question. You would need to direct that to Mr. Dice.
Mr. Dice?
I'm not going to discuss that here. If you want to
Because
go
it's
into
a personnel issue?
That's right.
I respect that.
I think we had a resident who would like to address council. I know you signed in. Please state your name.
Linda Gatos, Ward 1, resident running for council. The reason I wanted to come up was because you guys decided not to do anything on the capital budget for the new council members coming in, since the majority of you will be leaving. Why did you feel it necessary to hurry up and do the police contract when you were all leaving and not leave that for us as well?
You have to direct that to me, Linda.
And why aren't they working on the budget right now instead of worrying about a police contract that's not even up yet? That would be a question. And also, it was said that they had voted on this, but I haven't heard any numbers as to, of so many officers who said yes, who said no. I've seen anyone show any kind of documentation that that vote actually took place, that that was legally done, and everyone is aware of that to make that something, you just say it happened. But how do we know that?
I can get a
I mean, I
letter
just
from
wondered
union
if all the
you'd like.
council members were aware of what the vote numbers were, when it took place. Was it all done in one forum? Was it done individually? Who
I
ran
can check
that?
with the union reps, and I can get that information. for
Yeah,
you.
but I just think that that should have all been brought up prior to you even voting on this.
Again, if I may comment,
Prior to any decision.
there's not been a single contract that we've ever received that granularity of information.
Well, I don't know,
All
because
we've
I don't
ever-
sit up there, but I'm just
I
saying, I
understand,
had,
but you're
I
asking a
worked-
question and
I
I'm
had
addressing
union
it.
people, and, we got the counts.
I've been with this municipality for 30-some years, and I've never seen contract extensions without any negotiation. Never.
I've never seen it myself either, and I ran a union company, and I know what that's like, and that's why I don't understand this.
We've never received votes even for Public Works, clerical, we've never known
No,
what
but
their
you
vote
received
was.
Have you negotiated
negotiation.
with them, though?
I
there
mean, you
just
asked
seems
about
to-
the votes. I'm
Yes,
just saying,
well,
we've never received any.
Okay, but I'm just
so it's
saying
not
that there was no
unusual.
negotiation, no questions asked, no bargaining made.
Yeah,
just
Linda,
a-
keep the questions
Just
to
a
me,
vote
that's-
taken,
please.
and then not even seen written votes, or that it was done right, and then everyone votes on it without being 100% sure. Being there was no negotiations, how does everyone know that to be a fact?
Mrs. McKinney said she will certainly get you that documentation.
That's great, but this has already been voted on, so I just find a question with that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Once again, okay. You know what, sir, why don't you come on up front, sit up front so you can get up here. You okay? Okay. Please sign in and
Hi.
state your name.
Paul Caleri, I'm a Monroeville resident. I was just wondering if Ms. McKinney even knows what the police contract is. I asked that question because when it was somebody raised a question about the cost of living every quarter, or I'm sorry, when does a new patrol officer hit the maximum level? And she said, I don't know, 18 to 24 months. And we just renewed that contract. I just wanted to point that out. I'm sure everybody else heard it. So, and again, it was already stated, but why are we trying to push this through? What's the hurry right now? I mean, there was an arrogant statement made that aren't we a council of 7? But there's a new council that's going to have to live with this decision. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered here. And I think if you haven't even read the contract, you haven't had a negotiation, I mean, that doesn't make sense. Just wanted to make sure that, I wanted to get that out there for everybody. Thanks.
We'll get you eventually.
Beth Fishman, Monroeville. I just have two quick questions. What's the balance in the 2008-2010 capital improvement budget?
Is there 225,000 remaining?
And what about the 2011-13?
Check that, because it's still in the process of,
Expenditures are still coming out of that process, so there's not a, final amount.
But you amended it tonight.
We move things within the capitals all the time.
But you're moving money and you don't know how much is there? I understand there may be money
We're
still
moving it
coming
from
in.
line item to line item. We're
But
not
what's
moving it
there?
in and out.
What's there that you're moving around? What's the amount? There's 225 left in the other one.
Right. I'm not quite sure of your question. Do you want the amounts that we moved within the
No, I want to know
ordinances?
just the big pot. For the 2011-213 capital improvement budget, how much money is there right now?
Remaining, I wouldn't be able to give you a number off the top of my head. The line items that we transferred from, we could tell you the
Well,
amounts.
I don't understand how you can be transferring money when you don't know
Because the
how much
projects
is
still
there.
exist in the account. We haven't expended the money.
But you don't know that because you don't know how much money is in there.
Well, that money is in there.
Okay, that's my question. How much money is in there?
I would have to get a total from Mrs. Worksman.
2013 is the final year on the capital program. There is a balance of other lines that are still available. All we're doing is transferring within certain lines that we know.
What is the balance of the lines that are
We will have to
available?
get back to you.
That should only take about a day or so.
Correct. I will have that out first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
What? Come on down, sir. Yeah, I think you made it this time.
Going to bring this down a little bit, I guess. My name's Tony Pacusa. I do live in Monroeville. I'm here on behalf of Monroeville Soccer Club as a member, volunteer coach, and I also sit on the board of directors. I am going to read a fairly lengthy letter here that was prepared for me to read. I did not write it, so I apologize ahead of time. So,
Your turn, sir.
good evening, Mayor, Manager McKinney, members of council. I would like to take a couple of minutes to speak about our club, the Monroeville Soccer Club, and the proposed agreement that the municipality would like us to sign. Monroeville Soccer Club was formed over 30 years ago to enable Monroeville youth ages 5 through 19 a chance to play organized, competitive, or recreational soccer. Our club is totally run by volunteers who give up countless hours of their time so that the children of our community will have the luxury of playing soccer. Throughout the years, our club has worked very closely with the municipality in order to be sure to have places for these children to be able to play their games and to practice. For the most part, Monroeville Soccer Club has acted independently of the municipality in organizing and running our programs. All we ever asked for was use of fields, and there were many years in which this was not an easy task. The municipality was always willing to help whenever they could, as they realized that we were a valuable asset to the community. They knew that having a soccer club is an enticement to young families looking to move into the area. They also knew that we not only get to showcase our playing fields to the residents of Monroeville, but each week we get over 100 families from out of the area to come to our parks, which we are so proud of. What better way to get introduced to the municipality of Monroeville? We do our best each year to offer soccer to our children at a reasonable cost. We have been fortunate to have been able to keep our prices relatively the same for many years. Through good planning and hard work, we have been able to make significant purchases for the community. We were able to provide close to $25,000 to the municipality to build the restroom and concession stand at Monroeville Park East. In addition, since the new park was built, we have provided $25,000 to $30,000 in soccer goals and equipment needed for the new fields. This is where we start to have an issue with the agreement. You want our club to enter into a contract when we do not have any control of the fields that we use. We supply equipment, and anybody who comes to the park can use it. There is not a day that goes by that we do not have non-club members playing soccer on the fields, not to mention the countless frisbee, football, lacrosse games, as well as dog walkers and golfers. We do not have any control, so we should not have any responsibility. In the past, we have requested the municipality to take on the responsibility of the goals, and we have not been able to reach an agreement. We ask that we sell our goals to the municipality for a nominal fee, and in turn, the municipality will release us from any responsibility. We will continue to purchase goals and nets as needed at no charge to the municipality. All future purchases will also be given to the municipality. There are several items in the agreement which will need to be discussed, but for now, I will focus only on the dollars. For some reason, you find it necessary to charge the club a fee to use the fields for your own residents' enjoyment. As stated before, these fields that we do not have control of. No different from wanting to charge people money to work the beautiful gardens near the gazebo. We provide a service to the municipality free of charge. We give our valuable time to this community, and now you want to charge us. Something does not seem right here. We understand that the municipality is going through some rough times, and as always, we'll try to do our best to work with you in order to be able to provide the best product we can for our kids. We have no problem paying for improvements to the fields at this time. We do have a problem with being charged a flat fee each year. We can work with professional landscapers and the park's employees to come up with a yearly plan which will cover the field improvements, such as fertilizing, reseeding, etc. Once the plan is agreed upon, we will arrange the delivery schedule of the purchased goods. We will also take care of these payments. We don't want to have to worry about financial obligations each year. There is no reason that we cannot handle larger expenditures the way we have always been successful doing. That is by Monroeville Soccer Club budgeting for these expenditures as we foresee them. In conclusion, Monroeville Soccer Club hopes that we continue working with the municipality and its employees in the way that we can both provide enjoyment to our residents and their children. If an agreement is necessary in order to achieve this goal, then let's continue working together to have one that works for all of us. Thank you. And on that note, I'd like to apologize to the rest of the Monroeville Soccer Club and not completely understanding the process. This should have been read earlier under public comments on agenda items, I guess. But I did have a question then to follow up. Dr. Grieslock, you mentioned electricity and the lights at the fields costing $12,000 to $14,000, saying we make good money on concessions. I would like to point out that if it's good weather for a complete year of soccer, we might make $1,000 on those concession stands. And I was just curious what that split is of the electric between baseball and soccer. Is it a 50-50 split for who's paying for how much? Because I would like to say that if we use 5% of the electricity at those lights at all those fields, that's estimating high. So then that puts us at about $600 to $700. So all told, we're maybe getting $1,700, and you're asking us for $10,000. You know, like I said, I sit on the board of directors. We go through the process. We actually had to cancel our meeting tonight so some of us could attend this. And it just is a little bit disturbing based on the fact that, you know, we ask for help from the municipality. We don't get much, other than you guys basically cut the grass. And in doing so, sometimes destroying our nets by running them over with lawnmowers or weed eaters or whatever, and then costing us additional money. So I just wanted to, I mean, I know you guys voted to approve the agreements, but I just really want you guys to look line by line and see what we're providing versus what you want to charge us. Thank you.
If you'll please stay, I do have a comment. If you remember when we first did the one when I first got on as mayor a while back, I did not ever want to see us charge, because you already pay taxes as residents for these
500 resident families did.
Absolutely. That's issue number one for me. Two, if I were you, and I'm going to be very blunt and open, and I'm sure I'm going to make some of my colleagues up here angry, I would not sign the agreement if you're not happy with it. I think that you should certainly challenge them on the flat fee. It's our responsibility, in my opinion. We built the parks with your money. It is our responsibility to provide you with the lighting. And I'm sure not many up here will agree with me on that, but I have never been in favor of charging you a flat fee. I do agree that you guys do work with us and provide a lot of good, the nets and other things. I think all the baseball does it. I'm sure, so that's a good thing. And I know midget football also contributes as well. And I think just by you paying taxes should address the rest. And I'm sorry, I know we're in tight budget, but that's just my opinion. And again, I'm going to say it to both organizations. I wouldn't sign a damn thing if you're not happy with it.
Well, this is my personal opinion outside of the club is, you know, we're up here voting to spend all these different monies here and there, and it seems like this is one opportunity that the municipality is looking to get some income from us, and you're hurting the members in the community more than anything.
Well, I don't think it was looked at that way, but I do agree with all your comments, and I'll just leave it at that. Would anybody else like to address council?
Hi, I'm Len Young.
Move your hat, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
A little bit debris up there. I do live in Monroeville, 52 of my 56 years. First, I want to publicly thank the Public Works Department. Last Tuesday, I called up, left a message to see if they were going to be cutting the grass on the street I live on. Asked them to call me back. Never got a call back, but the next day I came home from work, the grass was cut. I was very impressed with that. So thank you, Public Works. Sort of a question about the, as just a hardworking tax-paying citizen here. With regard to the proper officials of Monroeville to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the Police Department Wage Policy Committee of the municipality, it's our money, right? Taxpayers' money that's getting dispersed here. Who represents us in these negotiations? I'm just wondering.
Well, I think obviously the manager certainly represented the municipality on this particular contract, or the extension of, I should say.
Can we get involved in this at all?
Could you or did you?
Could we?
Not that I'm aware of, no, sir.
I mean, could we?
You
could. When a
You
contract
could send
coming up,
emails
see
if you
what
would
the-
have known that there was negotiations going on. I'm sure you could send emails, because obviously all our emails are up there. You could have sent them directly to the manager or any member of council up here.
Like
Any
how do we
comments?
know when these contracts are coming up and they're going to be negotiated on?
Well, that's
That's a public document. You can look, they're under under the ordinance, and they tell you when they end.
I didn't
When
know.
they're required.
I wasn't made aware of any negotiations or an
I,
extension.
I have a copy of all of them, just so I
Yeah.
know when they're due, myself
But
personally.
Lynn,
But they're available for you.
yeah, Diane is correct on that. I mean, they are posted, the ordinances and et cetera. But now, when the actual negotiations start, If there were any between, well, I assume.
Wait a minute, you're stating that they were posted?
No,
The ordinances are posted,
That's
but
what I said.
obviously the negotiations happened prior to the ordinance
Well,
being
you
posted.
jumped ahead of me. I said the ordinances were posted, but I had no idea when the negotiations took place.
Neither did I.
The administration.
I'm just wondering
and-
if we, as tax-paying citizens, have any say-so in how our money's being spent.
Well, how it's done, actually, we have a resolution on who the negotiating teams are for when they're all up due. And that's our
Negotiating
resolution.
team?
Yes.
Well, let me
Where
put
they
it-
come from?
Let me put it this way to you, and you may not like the answer, but the folks everybody that you elected, your voting members up here, they represent your interest on that.
Yeah.
And that's why you should certainly, I encourage everybody, not just you, everybody here and listening in the audience, you should always stay in contact, and especially if you have questions, and you should keep up. I've said it many times, your local government affects your lives more than the federal government, more than the state government, more than the county. Anything that happens here, it happens immediately, so.
Okay. Well, that's a good segue to my next point, with regard to the budget. We got the budget coming up pretty soon.
Sure.
It seems like a broken record. Every year, we come up short, always short. $3 million, $4 million, whatever it is. Have you guys been talking about the budget yet?
Well, apparently it's going to be presented this evening.
Yeah. The budget's going to be presented.
Well, for 2014, that's my understanding.
Absolutely, I have had zero discussion on the budget.
Well, I was going to get to everybody on council.
Is it
Have
balanced?
an opportunity. Pardon me?
I'm
balanced?
getting there before you.
That's okay.
Is it a balanced budget?
I have not seen the proposed budget
Well,
yet.
I don't want to dwell on it, but
And again, procedurally, we typically are presented the budget around this time by the manager.
yeah.
Typically, you've had,
Works the budget out. It's the manager and the department heads of the municipality and the employees of the municipality that prepare the budget and then present it. And we have a series of hearings regarding the budget. It's the same way every year. And, over the last couple of years, we've actually had it presented earlier than we used to. Marshall used to present it on the last day of the month of November because by law, that's the last required day. He had to present it by then.
typically, we've had discussion with all the department heads by now.
Okay.
No, we haven't.
No, never.
We
We've
have not.
never had discussion
By
with the
now?
department heads?
No.
No.
The work sessions are scheduled at the end of October, the beginning of November. The manager has had discussion and interaction with the department heads, with the finance director, but council has
So
not.
has our new slate been given to us yet as far as when these meetings will take place?
Yes, it was given to you 2 months ago.
Okay, and I thought there was deviation from that because a lot of it was in the capital improvements, and we've eliminated, well, there was capital.
Well,
improvements.
Lynette, just so everybody's on the same page, resend the schedule out if you would, please.
Okay. Yeah, don't
But
wanna get
I am going to disagree with one thing. We've had meetings in the past prior to this
Good.
with the council, and we argued on, because I wanted it on live TV, and they only had the wide screenshot. Oh, yeah, we did.
No, you can ask
Okay.
Mrs. Worksman.
Well, it's encouraging that things are being talked about with the
Well,
budget.
I was at the meeting, so I didn't make it up.
The point I want to make is, the bozos, and I use that word very lightly, in Washington DC, with their budget issues, no need to get into that. Let's learn from their mistakes, and we can do much better here in Monroeville than the high.
I sure in hell hope so.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. So
I do too, because
really hope that you guys come up with a balanced budget this year.
On December 31st, they were voting on the budget. I don't want to be there.
Good idea. Yeah.
So that's
So-
the budget that I was saddled with in 2009. Late on December 31st, they were voting on it, because I was here
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
when they were voting on it, late in the evening.
Okay. Well, this all happens at the end of the year, right? The budget?
Well, as soon as this council's ready to accept either this proposal or change it or whatever, it's
Yeah.
a final draft, if you will, then they'll
But the
vote on
budget,
it, yeah.
it starts the beginning of the year?
Yes.
Okay.
January
Give us a
1.
nice Christmas present. Give us a balanced budget, please. Please. We got enough debt in this place.
Thank you, Lynn.
That's all. Thank you.
Once again, I'll open up the floor for any comments for any resident.
Ralph Greco from Monroeville. On the Dickey mechanic
McCamey.
McCamey?
Mickey McCamey.
Do we know how much that bill is at present?
Susan, what's our total at this point? Do you know? Ballpark?
I don't have the figure.
I'd have to look.
It's about 70,000,
Yeah,
maybe
last I looked,
80,000.
76,000.
It's closer to 80,000, yes.
Are we done with it?
We're waiting for a decision from HHS.
I'm sorry.
We're waiting for a decision from Health and Human Services.
Okay.
That's when it'll be completed. Hopefully, there'll be no more bills. But
Okay. It just seems a shame that we're paying all this money in attorney's fees, and we have people who come up here that are willing to give their time for soccer and everything else, and we're making them pay for stuff. And we're
Ralph,
wasting
I
money.
don't disagree with you on that. I'm not happy about it either. But again, this is up to these organizations to agree to that. You heard me clearly state, if they're not happy with it, don't sign it.
I
You can
think-
always negotiate again.
I think it's a shame that these people are volunteering, and then on top of that, we're turning around and charging them.
You're
And we
singing
can
to the
blow this
choir,
money
as they say.
everywhere else.
I don't disagree with you, Ralph.
You know, do we have an idea when that will conclude?
No, that the federal government takes their time in their time. They'll adjudicate it or give you a decision when they're ready. And I wish I had a better answer for you on that. I worked for the system a long time. They move at their own pace. You know that.
Okay, then. When Doug Cole was dismissed, was there any kind of information given from these attorneys? And
Again, HHS has all that information. And as I stated very clearly, once it does become final, it will be a public document. I will personally put it out publicly if nobody else is willing to do that.
well, I guess I'm asking, if we dismiss Doug Cole, then how did they do it without the information?
Can I,
Steve, you certainly can jump in.
I have the email right here that I received Wednesday, September 11th. Wanted to inform you that Sergeant Doug Cole's employment was terminated today. Lynette. That's all I've gotten. No explanation, nothing. This is the email that I received
What date was that?
September 11th at 6:01 PM. That's it. That's all I've received as a councilman sitting here.
I received the same email.
Only
We all received the
explanation
same
I've
email.
received.
Was there a reason given to Doug Cole?
Absolutely not to me. Absolutely not. This is
You know what,
exactly
Ralph?
what I've read, is exactly what I received.
Ralph, I'm going to try to help you a little bit on this. We really can go in too much discussion. All these issues are in litigation, filed by the former chief. There'll be a lot of information coming out from HHS. There'll certainly be some adjudication from the court system coming forth. I have no idea when, but I assure you that that's also coming. So we're going to know the same time you will a lot of what's going on. I wish, again, I had a better answer for you. I do not. That's being very honest.
Well, I think I got enough across that I got my point across. Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is your opportunity.
Tony Pacusa, Monroe. Maybe you can answer this, Mr. Dice. I don't know. I know in a lot of other businesses, and I would assume municipal management is the same way. When it comes to personnel matters, there's only so much a person can divulge to other people. So Mrs. McKinney sending an email to Mr. Duncan or all the council stating, as brief as it was, I know you want a reason, but or she's obligated not to give a reason. Is that correct?
By no means.
My understanding is that as a council member, you have a right to request any information that comes forth through the manager's office, no matter who sits there, especially on personnel issues. As a matter of fact, as a voting member of council, you can go and pull anybody's personnel folder and
That is incorrect.
that is not, is that incorrect?
Yeah,
Mr.
it's
Knight?
That is absolutely incorrect.
It is limited.
You have to read the home rule charter, and I happen to have it here.
What about case law? Case law would not allow that.
You mean to look at their personnel records?
To look at personnel
Yeah,
records, we are not,
I would have some
we not have that
problem with
authority.
it. But first, let's take a look at the charter.
I was under the understanding, and I thought you told me that you can.
Then that you can do what?
Look at their personnel folders.
And I was just curious, like I said, because I know other businesses in human resources, human resource officers are not allowed to divulge certain information like that.
No, that is correct. No, there's
So I didn't
certain
know if this
information
operated
that
the same
is,
way.
that is confidential.
I was just trying to get clarification.
And I wouldn't disagree with you that if we had an executive session, that we could ask the manager to give us information.
Oh, I didn't say publicly.
But, hear me out. That email was consistent with the emails that we've received in other terminations throughout the years. So it's not as though she did anything different than any of the former managers have done.
Good, thank you.
No.
Well, I haven't experienced a lot of terminations, other than the 4 or 5 that we've had in the last 12 months. But I would expect an explanation for a termination of this magnitude.
Oh, there's no question.
See, okay, well, I say that. Now, hang on, Mr. Dice, if you
Yeah,
would.
if, you know,
This goes with
we're
Ralph's
dancing on the
question.
head of a pin again.
Exactly.
If there is some disciplinary action that's going on, I think council has a right to inquire of the manager and inquire to see that personnel folder, to discuss that with the manager. But understand, under the charter, the manager has the ultimate right to hire, fire, demote, discharge, reduce in rank, and it doesn't require council's consent or even notice to council.
Can we get a written legal statement after you've done the research as to whether or
Sure.
not council can ever look at a personnel file?
You're saying if there's a disciplinary action, then you
Yeah,
have to look
that's
at it.
what.
Not, I just can't walk in and say, hey, you know, I want to see
Well,
somebody's personnel.
But my understanding was, the mayor said anyone on council can go look at anyone. So if I wanted to go see,
No.
say, for example,
No, no.
Mrs. Greasock,
Then I
personnel
stated
file,
it
I can't go and
incorrectly
do
then.
that, and I
That's
shouldn't be able to.
I stated it incorrectly then, because I was backing up Ralph. Hang on a minute, Bob. Backing up Ralph. He was asking, did we see any of the disciplinary action on anybody? I don't want to use anybody's name. And I said, we have a right to see that. And
You said, I thought you
and
said
can
we
you
had a
can
right
go-
to see any personnel file
Well,
as
that-
council.
And again, I said, I misquoted
Okay,
that myself.
all right.
I'll back off on that. But we do have a right to see the disciplinary action.
If nothing else, out of respect, if I was the municipal manager and I was to make an action of this magnitude, I would contact all of council and give an explanation. That's all I'm trying to get across.
We've had in the past, I'm just saying, they end with, and these are from other managers, not Mrs. McKinney, but it says, if you have any questions, call. Personally, I did on one, and I don't really know if anyone else did on this one, and I don't know if she gave an answer, or did you call her or ask for an answer?
I did not.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, this is what
I don't
happened in
feel
the
it
past.
necessary. I mean, if she felt that she needed to send me this email, there should have been an explanation attached.
And I'm going to be real blunt. There's been never of a controversial removal as this one in my 25 years sitting up here. So again, you would have
You've
thought.
been up here for 25 years?
No, in Monroeville. I'll correct myself. In Monroeville that I've ever remembered. So, the bottom line is, you can all make fun, but there's been no controversial removal like this ever in the 25 years I've lived in Monroeville. And I've talked to some folks that have been here over 50 years, have never seen this. And that's why you have all the issues and all the controversy. And I would have thought that no matter who sat as the manager, they would have given out more information on whatever they did.
I just want
And I'll leave it at that.
I would say, based on the leaks of information that we've had from this council to the media and other places, that quite frankly, if we want to have that discussion, we should have an executive session and have an appropriate meeting to do it. I motion that we move to an executive session so that she can discuss this, if people want to know.
It's pretty much a moot issue, don't you think?
Well, if there's questions,
I have no questions.
I don't either. It's
I'll
a moot
withdraw.
issue.
Mayor, I just want to point to one other thing that was, I think was cited one other time, and I referred to it, and it was controversial as far as I was concerned, but it wasn't necessarily made public, and that was around the time of, right before 2000, when there was a new cabal, if you will, that was coming on to council and mayor, who had decided, and not in a public way, in fact, not even in a way where they were sworn in, to meet and discuss the removal of the then municipal manager, Mary Ann Now. That took place at the same time that it was decided that, shortly after that, the solicitor would be removed. And of course, neither one of these things were tied to any real cause. Neither one of these things were made available to the public's knowledge, and they were very unethical. There are minutes, and again, you have to go back and look into the minutes to understand who made these decisions and why they might, well, you may not be able to tell, but that certainly has been part of our history.
Yeah, but again, as the manager, whoever sits there, and that's just not municipal here in Monroeville, that job is always one that could be disregarded at the will council at any given moment. They could just wave bye to you today and you're out of here. If you sit in that seat, that's the career they chose, all the managers. Little different when you're talking about a chief of police, and especially somebody with a record that our former had, and I'll just leave it at that, because we can get on this back and forth all day long.
Out of deference for Doug Cole.
I agree, and I apologize to the Cole family for opening my mouth.
Is there anyone else?
Would anybody else like to address council? Sir, you know what? Just come on up, grab a seat up front here. You'll be next.
Dan Alexander, Monroeville resident, candidate for council 3rd Ward. I wrote down some notes today. I actually had it on here that I wasn't going to talk about some issues, but man, you make it so it's real hard not to. As far as the Doug Cole thing that just came up and all that discussion, you've brought up that you wanted to completely change the home rule charter, or all that stuff. I think honestly, the municipal manager should have the right to hire and fire, just as if a manager of Burger King has a reason to hire and fire employees without running to the district manager and that. However, I think it needs to be changed that the municipal manager needs to consult council for any hiring, firing, demotions of department heads. And of course, a police chief is definitely a department head, because that would adversely affect the morale and the operations of the department. Individual employees, things like that.
Let me just interrupt you right there, Dan. That's what if you remember, I clarified that. That's the one issue that I thought needed to be visited by council.
Okay, I agree with that. And that's something the new council will have to address, because I don't see anything changing in the next 2 months. In addition, I wasn't going to talk about the budget, but real quick, you said the 2014 budget's going to be presented in that, and I just wanted to know, I own a house, I have a mortgage, and in my home budget, when I bought the house, I had to allow for mortgage payments. Now, I understand you get budgets from all the departments, and then you put them together, and you figure out how much money's coming in and how much expenses are, and try and balance it. Is anybody budgeting for your over $6 million house that the municipality now has, meaning not just budgeting in this budget the interest and the payments on the principal to get this $6 million down, because otherwise it's just going to be out there and it's never going to go away.
The $6 million is basically a deficit. That's we have more bond money on that. We're about 30-some million in debt if you count all the bonds.
Okay, well, we got a budget to pay that back.
Yes.
And then if we don't, it's got to be part of the budget, is what I'm saying.
Well, again, that'll be presented this evening, So I'm.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure if anybody votes on anything that, that it's
There'll be no
in there.
votes tonight. This is just being presented, and they'll have meetings on it.
Yeah, I know, because again, you're leaving the next council with a multi-million-dollar budget deficit. And as a council candidate, I'm sure the other ones appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I already talked about that. There's one thing I did want to talk about, and that's kind of, I seen and reading in the news and all that stuff, is this constant thing, our reputation in Monroeville. I mean, I just read in the Times Express, Cochrane, their Infinity division, is pulling out of Monroeville. They're going to Pine Township. So we're losing another business. And the reason they stated was more people over there are going to buy Infinities over here, because basically Monroeville residents, with all the taxes from here and Gateway, apparently don't have as much disposable income as we used to. And the problem with that is, I see, with all the negative publicity we've gotten, and nobody's disputing that we've gotten a lot of negative publicity this past year.
No question.
We've seen businesses pull out. We've seen businesses, there's a lot of empty storefronts in Monroeville. Businesses don't want to come back in because they're looking at this and saying, wow, I don't know if I want to relocate here, because the way Monroeville government is, I don't want to get into this mess. So they're hesitant to relocate here. I'm seeing a lot of for sale signs going up on residence houses, people moving out, probably because of taxes and other reasons. And I don't see too many coming back in, okay? So basically, we got a pretty bad reputation, and that's something the new council is also going to have to address. What I did want to say, though, thankfully, the ones, believe it or not, who can represent us and do represent us, unknowingly doing it and put a good light for Monroeville, are our kids. And I say that because I'm a band parent. My son plays drums in the marching band. And they go out and they put on their uniforms and they go out and they go to, they're going to Ligonier Days. They go all over the state. We're going to Disney World down in Florida in the winter. And every time we go there, we're representing, people say, oh, there's Gateway's band. And these kids are all crisp and doing their thing. They're from Monroeville, and they're the ones who put a positive light on our community. The adults don't, the kids are, unfortunately. And they're doing it unwittingly. They even had Bands of America competitions, PIMBA competition coming up, national competitions, and constantly these competitions are saying how great Monroeville is. Boy, they really put on a good show. They really did a great job. They're not only making Gateway School District look good, they're really making Monroeville look good to everybody. On that note, I did say that I would mention this. To continue to look good, the Gateway Band is holding a not a fundraiser. It's they need new uniforms. Their uniforms are getting old. And so up at the Gateway High School auditorium, this Saturday, for those watching, and I'm sure there's a lot who are watching who aren't into Justin Bieber or even know who Justin Bieber is. There's a group called Lights Out, and they're a very famous tribute band for Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. And they're really good, and I know there's a lot of people watching who probably remember Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons and want to do that. They're having their concert at 7 p.m. This Saturday up at the Gateway High School auditorium. Prices, adults are $15, students are $10. You can still buy tickets at the box office at the Gateway High School this Thursday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., or you can reserve tickets by calling 412-373-5751. All the money, the band is actually on board with this, and they're actually waiving their fees. And they get paid because they're supposed to be like one of the top tribute bands out there. And they're waiving their fees for these kids. And all the money is going to purchase new band uniforms because they get actually the Gateway High School Band gets very, very little to no money from the Gateway School District. They're completely self-supporting, and a lot of people don't know that. So it's a good time. Like I said, help the kids out. Bring
Our ticket sales, Dan, you know?
We can put 1,000 people in the auditorium. I think we got a couple hundred right now, so there's plenty of seats. And it's only because we're just trying to get the word out there and that. But it's to a good cause, because like I said, these kids go out, where we're getting a lot of negative publicity in news. These kids are going out and showing the good side of Gateway and showing the good side of Monroeville, and actually people are coming back really, really impressed and saying, wow, they're from Monroeville. Everywhere they go, they're from Monroeville, which is making us look real good. So, like I said, it's a shame the kids are representing us well and the adults aren't, but hey, that's how it is. So, just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Excuse me, if you don't mind if I interrupt, Mr. Dice, we had talked about, and I think there's some good ideas with regards to what Dan said about the role in the manager, but all that has to be done by a referendum to the voters, and it takes, whether we're here 2 months or not, you have to know the process to do about it. It's changing the home rule charter, which requires a referendum on the ballot. And you have to submit, Ms. Dice, how much in advance for an election?
The process would be that council would have to pass an ordinance to request Allegheny County Department of Elections to put it on the ballot for a referendum if you want to change the language inside the charter. So let's say add the language where it says hire, fire, suspend, discharge with the advice and consent of council, if you wanted to add that sentence to it, so that you would now have to check with council, or the manager would have to check. You pass the ordinance has to be down to the county, I'm going to say, every bit of 6 weeks before the next election takes place. The county then gets to pass on the language. It's not our language, it's going to be the county's language. We propose language. If they don't like it, they can reject it. You have to rewrite it and give it back to them. Then it gets placed on the ballot. And then once it's placed on the ballot, the voters decide. And if they decide to approve that language, then it would get added to the charter. But that process can only happen twice a year, once in the primary or in the general.
Is there a time limit as how soon you can give it to the county?
Yes, you have to, I'm going to tell you, it's 6 weeks before the primary of next year.
Okay, but you can't submit it earlier than that?
Sure you could.
Okay, so
That's-
if
I'm
the new
talking about
council
the
comes in
deadline.
January, says, hey, look, we need to do this to avoid
Yeah,
this
and
problem in the future, we can put it in,
probably
and then
mid-
we have a lot of time to work with the county to get the wording right before it
Probably
goes on.
mid-February, you have to have the language to them.
Well, I think that's what we need to do.
To get
then.
it on the spring ballot. And then, I remember
I
that
just
it
wanted
was,
you to understand the process. It's not.
Yeah, I
Okay.
figured that, I just wanted to put it out there
But
because
first, you would have
this,
to,
if
council
we
would
did
have to pass
something,
an ordinance.
if
to
we
do
did
that, to
something
go
like this,
forward.
if we
For
did something like
anything in there.
that would completely,
I
it would
feel-
eliminate a lot of this, because even if like the chief of police would be let go and something like that, the council can't say anything about it because they were involved in it. Or any department
And we'd
head.
be able to explain it to our residents when they call you and say, Mr. Duncan, why was so-and-so fired or let go, and I have no clue.
Exactly. Or they could vote you out because you did.
Right.
Exactly.
let me give you an idea. If you wanted to put something on this November's ballot, you had to have passed it by August 12th. So it's that early prior to the election. So take it to now the April election, you've got to have it in
Okay, well, I
early
was just
February.
putting it out there, it's something that needs to be done to avoid this situation in the future. So, okay, thank you.
Please sign in, sir. State your name for the record, and you don't need to give your address, but certainly you have to live in Monroeville.
My name is Rich Terrell. I am a resident of Monroeville. I've been a volunteer coach with Monroeville Soccer Club now for 7 or 8 years. I wonder if council has considered what happened with the Gateway School District when they jacked up their rental rates for their facilities so high that they lost about half of the people that were renting those facilities. That could easily happen with Monroeville if you increase this fee to $10,000 flat to the club, and the club has to pass it on to their people. Their people are going to go somewhere else where it's cheaper, especially when Plum is right around the corner, Penn Hills is right around the corner. Hey, next thing you know, my kids played with these kids all along. I'm going to move to that school district. And then you just lost tax money on top of that $10,000 that you may or may not get. So when the club comes back and says, we're not going to sign that, you might want to think about that when you come back with your counter proposal, because I can tell you right now, soccer is a relatively inexpensive sport, and that's one of the things that attracts a lot of people to it, besides the fact that you can play it in a fairly simple way, besides the fancier way that we have the nice fields that we have. But when it starts getting more expensive, you start losing people. And honestly, I live close enough to Plum that if I had to take my kids to Plum because the fees just got too ridiculous, I would. I don't want to. I love the people that I work with. I'm not on the board, but, being a coach, I work with the board a lot, and I love the people here. I like the facilities we have, but if I have to spend that much money on the income that I have, I'll go somewhere else if I have to. And if that means that Monroeville loses something, I hate to see it, because I live here.
Your point is well taken, sir. Once again, we'll open it up. We'll close this proportion of our meeting, and Sharon needs about a 5 or 10 minute break for her finger, so reports are coming up from our officials.